I've been out on maternity leave for the last 7 weeks, and so it feels good to teach class. Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
I can't believe you had a baby.
Thank you.
Okay.
It did.
That's
She's
for
beautiful.
sure.
She's right there. She's the little one with the mullet.
Yeah.
Not Shannon. Not the one with her.
The other mullet.
The other mullet. No. She doesn't have a mullet. I'm trying to be a jerk.
This one has a motive.
Yeah, that one.
That's better. Okay.
So tonight we're getting to the magical world of thought, which is so incredibly powerful. So the first thing I want you to do is, on your piece of paper, I want you to write down a thought that you have on a regular basis. If we'll go positive with it. So if you write down a positive thought, you can stay with that. But tonight I want to kind of tackle maybe more reoccurring, perhaps negative thoughts or deeper repressed thoughts perhaps that we have on a regular basis. You're not going to share them. So it's really just for you, because when we go through finding out reoccurring subluxations and maybe where they're coming from, I'm going to put up a board so you can see, not up a board, like a chart, so you can see what emotion goes to what area of the spine and how you can connect that back to perhaps the thoughts you're having. And don't get me wrong, if you have a subluxation over and over and over, it might be from one of the other T's. It could have to be from a toxin, or it could be from a trauma. So, I'm not saying they're always back to a thought, but just in case, take a moment, give yourself a second, but if there's a thought that you have on a reoccurring basis, and let me tell you that there is, because 90% of the thoughts you had yesterday are the exact same thoughts you're having today. So if you've tried to tell me that you don't have reoccurring thoughts, I wouldn't believe you because of that stat. So give you a second, take a second, and just write down a thought that maybe you think you have on a reoccurring basis. You're done?
No.
Reoccurring thought.
She's too fast. I can't follow. I know.
Did you say you didn't do one?
No, I said you do.
You didn't do one? She ratted you out. Come on. Alright, we're gonna come back to those thoughts in a second. Don't be looking at other people's thoughts.
I'm like, she did rat him out.
I was like, yeah, she ratted him out for sure. I thought you were trying to look at Lisa's thoughts. I'm like, don't look at her thoughts. I'm like, those are her thoughts, not yours.
I'm not.
So, one of the #1 causes of subluxations when it comes to the thought process is stress. So, thoughts are your numero uno stressor, and it's stressful thoughts. So here's what happens. Here's the general idea, but I'm going to take you through other examples. But I think the first idea of stress and a stressful thought is the easiest thing for people to comprehend. So when you're looking at stress, negative thoughts and stress cause a cascade of hormones that can do physical damage to the body. The nervous system perceives non-physical stressors to be threatening. So what it does is it reacts the muscle, and then it causes the body to brace the body. It holds a bone in certain places, and it causes asymmetry or imbalance within the body, within the spine. That's the easiest one. If anyone's ever been to Dr. Andrews' stress thought, he goes through how it hits off the adrenal glands, how it affects the kidney, how it affects the liver, how it affects the stomach, yada, yada, yada. And he goes through the whole thing. But I'm going to take it a little differently, and I want to make it more through emotion. So I'm going to give you guys a couple different scenarios, and I want you to sit there and I want you to feel how the body feels. I want you to feel how certain areas of the body feel. So this will make more sense. Let me read you. So when you think about stress, chiropractic, Chinese medicine, anybody that's worked through chakra or energy work have been working with the idea of thoughts and energy and motion for centuries. Now modern medicine is just getting into the idea that to have a thought creates a hormonal response, and a hormonal response in the body also can create a thought. So it's this closed system and it's closed looped, and now modern medicine is calling that the body, or the mind-body medicine. So not the body-mind connection, what they call it for centuries, but now it's called the body-mind medicine. So it's the idea that every thought you have creates a hormone. So let's try it this way. I wrote down a couple different scenarios. So, generally speaking, everyone thinks that their mind and their body is two separate systems and that they work interdependently or independently of one another, not interdependently. If you need to give her to Andrew, you can pass her to him. So, try to think of the last time that you had, or anybody else, yes.
So lots of volunteers.
I know, you're right, you don't have to give them to Andrew. Sometimes she just likes variety, so that's all it is. So try to think of the last time you had a job interview. A first date, I'm looking at this crew, maybe not the first date isn't the best scenario, but maybe, oh, I love it. Okay, good. Okay, so the first job interview or a first date. And think about when you go to see that person and what you really are trying to do, you're like, okay, I want to impress this person, right? And in either case, you want to appear calm, you want to appear collected, but at the same time, you're feeling incredibly nervous and anxious and maybe a little self-conscious. Or even think about public speaking, because it's that same idea of trying to persuade a crowd or persuade your wit. Not even persuade, that's not a great word, but have this connection with another person. But you have to sit there and when you're thinking about this, think about how your body felt, right? A lot of people's self-consciousness will actually tightens your buttocks muscles, so you're literally sitting on these tightened rocks of tension underneath of you while you're sitting there preparing for whatever you're going to say to this person. A lot of times you'll sweat more. You'll feel a little nauseous. You might stifle your words, and what you're really trying to do is come off a little more self-confident. So I want to do this with other emotions because I think that one's the easiest one to do. Have you guys ever seen Annie Hall? That movie, Annie Hall? So there's a scene in there where Diane Keaton, she says, why doesn't he get angry? He never gets angry. He said, I don't get angry, I grow tumors. There's a point where he says that, and Woody Allen, it's like, that's genius because it's so true, and it's 100% so true. So let's talk about irritated or frustrated. Again, think about your body and think about where you're at. So we're on a couple things. Where do you experience those feelings? Or let's say you're stuck in a traffic jam, you're late for something. Let's say you two are trying to have a conversation, your child keeps interrupting you every 2 seconds when you're having this conversation. What begins to happen? What happens with your breathing? What happens with your shoulders? What happens with the tension? What happens with the muscles in your stomach? Going to another one. How about worry? The child comes home late. You're waiting for results on a test. Your husband had a blood test. You're waiting for results back. Same thing. How does the stomach feel? How do your legs feel? Do you get tension in them? Do you get tightness? Do you get headaches? Do you get fatigue? What happens with all of these emotions? The other one I want to talk about is anger, because anger is a big one. So let's say you're in a spat with a spouse or with a colleague or with a boss. Someone yells at you. You have a confrontation. Do you keep it bottled in? Do you feel angst or tightness in the throat? Do you feel the tension in the head? Do you feel the cauldron of that emotional cauldron in the stomach? All these little tiny pieces. Can all of you feel those things? Anytime you talk about any of those things, a child that's being late, a child that interrupts you nonstop, do you feel certain emotions? You get a physical reaction, which is 100% what it's supposed to be. It comes together to show you that every time you have a thought, you do have a physical reaction. So every time that thought occurs, they're not two independent things. It's this entire collaboration whole that works together. And I think you guys know that. I mean, every time we talk about chiropractic, we talk about how the brain can affect the organ and vice versa, how that organ can go around and affect that brain. It's this closed circle and this closed loop. That closed loop happens the same way between thoughts, body, emotion. It's 100% a closed loop. So what I want to do is I want to put out a couple different things because I want to show you guys how you can reset your thoughts when you're getting adjusted. So Dr. Andrew and I, and actually Calissa and Allie, we went to a seminar, and there's a chiropractor, and he was working with a neurologist, and they're working with a system that's called BrainTap. So BrainTap is essentially the system where you do light therapy and sound therapy to help restructure the brain so you can create new neural pathways. So a neurologist creates this, and one of our colleagues goes and he meets with him, and he's like, hey, what do you know about the adjustment? What do you know about chiropractic? Because we are always creating new neural pathways. And he's like, nothing, I don't know anything about it. So they start working together. And through research, they found, so this guy was curing all these things, MS, he's curing PTSD, he's curing like all these crazy diseases that people would never think of. But what he found is every time that people went on his brain tap, and when you go on brain tap, you have to be on a minimum of 20 minutes. He found that when people got adjusted, it was the equivalent of them sitting on brain tap 120 times. He said the reason that chiropractors don't get the same results as he was getting with this system is because when people come in to get adjusted, they rush in, they get adjusted, and they rush straight back out into the exact same life that they just came from. He said when they get on brain tap, he said the cool part about chiropractic, this neurologist is saying this, the cool part about chiropractic is we found out that it creates all these open neurological pathways. So the brain can then start reforming pathways so people can get through the exact same things that he was helping cure. Technically, people were curing themselves. Everyone realizes that, right? They were curing themselves, but they were just creating new neural pathways. But he said when they rush in, get adjusted, even though they have all these neural pathways, they rush right back out into the exact same life they just came from. They don't have any time to rest and decompress. The cool part is when chiropractic started, BJ Palmer, one of the developers of chiropractic, he had a rest room. And a lot of people that do upper cervical work, which is awesome, which we've always talked about doing, is they have a rest room. So you go, and a lot of times some people will I don't mean a rest room, like relieve yourself, like, I just thought, I heard it after I said it, rest, pause, room. So they will go and they'll rest before their adjustment, 10 minutes maybe, get adjusted, they'll go back into the room, lay back down, and they'll rest for another 10, maybe 15 minutes, and then they can leave. So it's kind of like a circle, you come in, adjustment, go back out, relieve, and then you can leave. Where a lot of times, I mean, in here, we're fast-paced. Dr. Andrew and I are fast-paced, so that's how we like to keep the office moving fast-paced, make sure you're doing all your therapies, make sure you're walking afterwards, make sure. But sometimes, yes, we like you face down on the table to give your body a couple moments to decompress and de-stress, but having that rest or that conscious mind being set beforehand can 100% help you restructure the neural pathways in the body. So there's something that we say in chiropractic, we say the nerves that fire together wire together. So like I said, 90% of the thoughts you had yesterday are the exact same thoughts you're having today, and vice versa. 90% of the thoughts you're going to have tomorrow are thoughts you've already had today. So what I want to do is look at the perhaps the emotion that's a little more taxing, maybe not the positive thought you're having reoccurring, but perhaps maybe the negative thought that you're having that's reoccurring. I'm not saying that this is you, and I'm not saying this is 100% going to go together, but a lot of times they do. So if you have a thought that's reoccurring over and over and over, these perhaps could be your subluxation. So don't get me wrong, I have 2 slides of them. But for you, if you have one that comes up, so anytime we adjust you, a lot of times Andrew will call off segments to Allie, or we'll tell you, and you'll hear a segment over and over and over. So you're like, L5, why do I always have L5? What am I doing? And sometimes we'll try to help you identify it, but it's so hard because we're not with you 24 hours in the day. So I don't know what you're doing. A lot of times, maybe it's from work, yes. Maybe it's from driving in the car. Maybe it's from something you're eating. And thoughts are the hardest ones to tag, but they're probably one of the most important. So let's go through, because I'm going to help you restructure what to do when you're laying face down on that table, so that when you go and have that segment adjusted, when you have all these new open pathways, how can you restructure this thought that you're having reoccurring? So let's say, okay, so go through, I'm going to show you both. I'm going to give you a little bit of time, so I'm going to look and identify. And the next one. So I'm going to share something personal. So I'm going to give you one of my pretty consistent subluxations. One of my subluxations is C1. It comes up pretty consistently for me. So C1 can also be correlated with food sensitivities. So if you have C1 that comes up a lot, you also could be sensitive to a certain food that you keep consuming, which also could be one of my issues, because I'm very, very sensitive to brewers and bakers' yeast, and I really like beer. It's been pretty stable lately since I haven't been drinking for the last year, but I'm going to be honest, a lot of times that would come up for me, and I know why. But one of the other things that I also have is instability in my emotional. I'm emotionally a little unstable, and I come off as I'm pretty elevated most of the time. I'm pretty high, but I definitely get through waves. But when I go through waves, I become withdrawn. So how do I say this? My father kind of has the same thing. I'm not saying I'm manic depressive. I'm not in that way, but I know my emotions well enough that I know they get a little bit wonky and they'll stay there for a period of time, and I know it and I can identify it. And when I'm in a lull, when I'm kind of in one of those downs, I know that I kind of pull back from the office. So it's one thing that I do. Not when I'm adjusting people. It's the other things outside of here I'll just push to the side and I won't do it. And then after like a couple weeks or even a few months go by, I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't done anything. And I'll be coming up on one of those higher moments, and then I'll go and get everything done. And it's just kind of how I've worked, and I've been like that for a long time. I was like that. I kind of started identifying it in high school. So I noticed in high school I was like that, and then I noticed in grad school I really noticed it. So all of a sudden, I'm supposed to be studying to take a state board, and I haven't done anything for weeks. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm taking these in like 2 weeks. I haven't done anything. So, so I know that about myself. But those lulls and kind of those ups and downs, it 100% goes with instability and emotional instability. For me, that is something that I know about, and it's something that kind of runs in my family on my father's side. Theirs is a little more extreme than mine is, but I can identify that thought pattern. And so every time you go to get adjusted, there's certain things that you can do. Is everyone had enough time with these? Actually, I forgot I printed them off. Oh, yay. I forgot. I'm so sorry. That was a lull. I think I only have 9 at the moment, so when we get done, I'll give everybody another one. Sorry about that. I even knew I had something. I forgot.
This was awesome.
Good job. My bad. It is.
Okay.
My bad. So the nerves that fire together wire together. That's something that you 100%. Dang it. The nerves that fire together wire together. Try to remember that phrase. The nerves that fire together do what?
Wire together.
I like this group. Good. So you have to reevaluate that negative thought pattern or that negative thought process that you're using. So here's one of the ways that you can do it. When you go face down on the table, and they get to the area that's going to be adjusted. So if it's a T4 and it's the gallbladder has a lot to do with like worry and angst and all of those things. So for me, C1 comes up and he's like, okay, we're going to adjust your C1. I'm laying face down on the table or I'm on my back, one or the other. When you go there, there's certain things you can do. And I gave 3 different examples of things you can do. These you might want to write down though. So one of the things you can do is you can give forgiveness. So let's say something happened as a child. Maybe a parent reprimanded you. Maybe someone was. We can go deeper too. I mean, maybe there was abuse. Maybe there's insecurity about self. Maybe you were bullied as a kid. Maybe X, Y, Z. You can see how these can get deep, right? And this is why it gets really difficult when you have,
Can I just say something too? From what I understand, it can be a good thing too.
It can be.
Creative. Like, say your dad came home every day and he gave you a hug that was like really just too tight, but you didn't want to say anything. So you kind of
You're right, it
started
can be a
going
good
like
thing, too.
this. Then you go like this for your childhood and you end up with this.
chronic.
So it can be,
No,
you
you're right,
love
it
the
can be good
hug,
too.
but I don't know, maybe that wasn't a good example.
No, that is a good example. You're 100% right. I mean,
I just didn't want people to think it's all negative.
it doesn't have to be
things that can
negative
create-
either. In fact, I had a woman that was helping her father move. She was helping him move, and she was a little bit older, she was probably in college, not older. Yeah, she was probably like in college. And she said she went to help him move, and she was super happy because he was like moving on with his life, and he was kind of getting his crap together, and she was helping him move into a new place. And she said she went to move this big, huge piece of furniture, and she said it was kind of from that day that she had always had issues with her mid-back. And it was a trauma that happened, but it's still triggered by an emotional memory that she had. So every time she would have this emotional response, like with her father, she would notice that her mid-back would flare up too. So it doesn't always have to be a negative thing. A lot of times they just get really deep when they are negative, that's all. Because a lot of times if they're positive, people will talk about them, but when they're negative, we like to suppress things. So, repressed grief. I went to a homeopath when we were in India, and he told me that the reason I had deep recesses in my forehead were due to repressed grief. I was like, great, repressed grief, why do I have repressed grief? But then I went and I was talking to my mother and things that were happening to her during her pregnancy, And I was like, oh my gosh. And all these different things started coming to light. And she's like, well, when I was pregnant with you, X, Y, Z, all these different things were happening. And then actually when I was pregnant with Indy, I was having dreams. I was like, this is so weird because this dream doesn't feel like it's mine. It feels like I'm crying and I'm upset, but I don't know whose this is. It was very, very, very strange. And I called my mom and she's like, oh, well, here's what happened to me when I was pregnant with you. I was like, oh my gosh. And it all kind of came full circle. I digress, but. So anyway, that has nothing, well, it kind of has something to do, but nothing to do. So the first thing you can do is you can give forgiveness. So you can give forgiveness if it's a person, you can give forgiveness if it's a situation, you can give forgiveness, whatever it may be. But it's kind of that, you don't have to say, I'm sorry to that person, but it's just kind of a letting go. And so forgiveness to yourself, because the only person that hurts is ourselves. And we all know that, and everyone knows that. But yet we hold on to things thinking it's going to hurt them, and it never does. It only hurts ourselves. So forgiveness is one of the first things you can do. Rewriting the ending or the outcome. A lot of people are like, I don't want to rewrite the ending, what happened, like that doesn't change the situation. But internally, for the synapses of the brains, it can change the situation exponentially. So if you have all these open neurological pathways and you rewrite an ending, your response to that ending, your response to that situation can dramatically change. Even though in this life, in this external world, perhaps it doesn't change, in your internal world, it 100% can change everything. And then the last one is viewing the situation differently from a different perspective or from someone else's shoes. Because the way it made you feel, someone looking from the outside world, they're like, okay, but you have to figure out where they're coming from too. They had to live a life, you had to live a life, this was happening to them. Maybe they were insecure about X, Y, Z. Obviously, these are a lot of situations I don't know what we're talking about, but I'm just trying to put it into perspective. So those are all different things you do. As you go to lay on that table, and as you get to that segment, whether it's in the mid-back, the low back, neck, wherever it may be, they get to that segment, and before they even get there, as we start moving up and moving into that general region, 100% start that process. Be very visual. See how it makes you feel. You really, really, really have to visualize everything that's going on. So if you're rewriting the ending, you have to feel that entire ending. If you're giving forgiveness, let it be that deep down forgiveness. We have people cry all the time. We have people. It's not weird and it's not bad. That's just what that body needs to heal. It's a release. It's what that body needs to heal. So thinking well can be incredibly hard in our society, right? We have the news. We have social media. We have Facebook. I was reading a study by Stanford that said people's happiness points before going on Facebook, they'll take a poll, and then after they go on Facebook, they go down by 30%. That's why you don't have it. You're like, I don't want to be more happy just by having Facebook. But you see it. Anything people put on Facebook is only the greatest things in their life. No one ever puts, well, sometimes they do, but not very often. It's usually the best thing that's ever happened to them. You look at someone's life, like, man, they're having so much fun. They're out doing this and this and this. They get to travel all the time. They have all these friends. But you never get to see the other side of that. So a lot of times you go on Facebook, it leaves you more depressed. News, media, social media, etc. There's so many more things we have to think about for our children now. Instagram, it's not just Facebook anymore. It's Instagram, it's Snapchat, it's other things. It's Twitter, thank you. It's, I don't know. I tried, I don't know. So, there's one more thing that I want you to do, and I think these are three of the biggest things that you can work on or that you can look at when we're talking about thoughts and how they influence us. And I'm going to give you my three biggest ones too. If you have other areas when I go to thoughts to improve other mental impulse, he's zen. That dog is so zen. I loved it. So there's three things you can do. You have to look at core beliefs. You have to look at core beliefs, core values, and then your self-talk. So your core beliefs are things that it's your belief system used to evaluate the world around you. It's your paradigm and how you experience the world. These belief systems can change though. So that's one thing. Core values cannot change. They're usually innately born within you, but belief systems can change. When it comes to core beliefs, if people are actively pursuing to change a core belief in a lifetime, you get to change 3. That's what they say, that's what experts say. You get to change 3 core beliefs. That's not very many. So if you're trying to change a religious belief, how hard do you think it is for us to change someone's health belief? Super, super, super difficult. Very, very, very difficult. Because that is 100% a core belief. Because it's it's developed by the world around them. So I have 3 different exercises, and I'll give these to you as well to make it easy to go through them. Again, I only put out 9. It's those top 3 sheets. And same thing over here, top 3 and then top 1. So for the core belief, what you do is you do it 3 days in a row, and you set a clock for 15 minutes, or a timer for 15 minutes, and then when you guys are done, so they're all together.
Yep.
Yeah. So then, and then whoever doesn't have one, let me know and I'll get you sheets. So for the core belief, you set a timer, a stopwatch for 15 minutes, and you do it during 2 days during a work day, and then 1 day when you have a day off of work. And basically, every time it goes off, you do a self-check. What was I just thinking about? And you jot it down, and then 15 minutes goes by. What was I just thinking about? What was just consuming my thought? You jot it down. At the end of the day, you go through and you figure out what was consuming most of your thoughts during that day. What you try to do after that, after you figure out what's consuming your belief system, because your thoughts then begin to be who you are, correct? So from there, you get to identify what you're spending most of your time thinking about, and then from there you can go and rewrite it. So that's one thing you can do to identify core beliefs. The next one you have to do is core values. Core values, I try to pick the 3 biggest ones. So for core values, the basic human values of unconditional love, forgiveness for ourselves and for other people, optimism, the desire to grow are things that I wrote down, achieving a life's purpose. These are all things that are innately kind of born within a person. So they're kind of stamped on our genes, on our heads, on our hearts. They're just things that kind of every person wants within themselves. So when you determine core values usually don't change. They're kind of, you're just kind of set with your core values. And even though everybody's are a little bit different, generally, people have an idea, and core values a lot of times are shared. So what you do is you choose a person, and it doesn't have to be you, but you choose a person, and what you think about that person, and you write down all the values that you cherish about that person. And you usually have like 10 or so. And then when you go through, after you get their values of what they are, because these are things obviously that you cherish, or that you see that makes a person important or special or whatever it may be, and then you go through and you rate yourself from 1 to 10. And it's not a criticizing thing, that's not what it's here for, but your body and your mind always knows if there's incongruencies within yourself. When there's incongruencies within yourself, within your core values, if you're acting a way that's different than what your core values really are, so let's say you value honesty. It's I wish I could remember the stat. I meant to look it up for you guys and I forgot to. But it's something like people lie like 45 times within a day. It's something ridiculous. It's really high. It's off the charts. It's out of control. And people, they don't even know they're doing it. So people don't even know that we do it. But if honesty is one of your things that you cherish, and you're like, yeah, they're little white lies. They're not like lies. Like, I mean, I do it too. Yeah, honey, I already left. I'm on the road. I'm just not putting my stuff in my car. Like, yeah, okay, I do it. So there's little things like that. Yeah, I'm almost there. I'm on my way. I'm almost there. Yeah. Turn around, I'm right behind you. Oh, you can't see me? I'm like, haven't even walked in yet. So there's little things like that. And there's little tiny white lies. So if you're going through and you choose values of this person, then you go through and you rate yourself. And let's say anything that you're not a 10 on, then that week, you write down action steps, because the only thing you can change is putting action into words, right? Putting action into thought. The same reason why it's so important when you go to get adjusted and you're changing your thoughts, you have to put action behind it. You can't just do nothing and get adjusted and then walk back out, right? That's what the neurologist said, why we don't get the exact same results that he's getting by 120 times. Mm-hmm. So you go and you take a week and you write down action steps, and then what you do is you do those action steps. You do those action steps towards that value. So if it's like, don't lie about being late this week, that would have to be in mine. It would be like, don't lie about being late this week. Are you on your way? Yeah. No, I'm not on my way. I am just now getting into the car. I'll be there soon. Literally, it's those times where you take that little time out, you check it yourself. That's literally what it is. It's just checking yourself for a second, and then moving forward, okay? If you get to the end of the day and you realize you haven't done any of your action steps, then when you go to lay down at the end of the day, take yourself through that visualization. So have someone confront you with something or a value, and that's you expressing yourself fully, being 100% brutally honest, and then moving forward. Then you can go to sleep, because then every day it puts you one step closer to living your true values. The last one is self-talk, or internal dialogue. When you get to that last page. Internal dialogue is the other one that I did, and your self-talk determines your emotional response to your interpretation of your life and your life experiences. Your emotional behaviors are ultimately based upon your self-talk, and ultimately your state of health or illness are heavily influenced by your self-talk. So, you are what you think. That's what you have to know. So one of my favorite things to do, and there's other areas that you can use on this one, but my favorite is affirmations. And it really is. And whether you want to do them at the beginning of the day or at the end of the day, actually write, whenever Andrew and I are trying to achieve something or we're trying to change something, we put affirmations on our mirror. Because then as you read it, you're looking into your own eyes and it's reflecting back onto you. So we actually use affirmations on our mirror, and they're always there every time you're getting ready in the morning. And that's one time that you actually look at yourself. Like really look at yourself is when you're trying to get ready. Because the rest of the day, I don't look in the mirror. Yeah, who looks in the mirror the rest of the day? Nobody does. So maybe that's a lie. People do. But most of the time, it's just that morning time you have with yourself. It's usually quiet, and that's the best time to improve your self-talk. And I think the best time is in the morning. Some people say at night before you go to bed, which is probably a good idea as well. But in the morning before I start my day, I think it gets everything going in the right direction. So affirmations. People that poo-poo on affirmations are usually people that have negative thoughts, that are negatively thinking about themselves, about others, and talking about themselves and about others. So don't let anyone poop on your affirmations. Other things you can do is giving gratitude. That's why we have the gastrals out there. The G is for gratitude, A is for action step, and S is for service that we do. Valuing your relationships. So a lot of times people value things instead of overvaluing people, animals, whatever it may be, but value those relationships that you have and feed into them, right? Go for a walk, and when you're on that walk, when I go for a walk, one of my favorite things to do is call my mom, and it's just a time to check in, get a pulse check on everyone's life, or my brothers, or whoever it may be. Praying, meditating, knowing priorities, knowing your goals, making goals, setting goals. Those are all things that are super fun for people. If you set a goal, you have to set an action step. You can't just set a goal and then just set a goal. Get plenty of sleep, smile, even when you don't feel like smiling. I think Andrew did there's been multiple studies that say if you walk into a room with mirrors, like depressed people that walk into a room that are fully engaged in mirrors, if they smile at themselves for 15 minutes, they found the best results out of any medication they could have possibly taken by just purely smiling. Move closer to work, go outside. The peak temp for happiness is 57 degrees, connect with nature, and then volunteering. So the last thing I want you to do as we end is I want you to look back down at your sheet of paper and the thought that you had that perhaps wasn't the most positive thought, and I want you to rewrite that thought, and I want you to do literally the complete opposite of that thought. So if your thought is, if it's financial, like I don't know if I'll have enough money for XYZ, literally flip it around and say something like, finances are abundant, I get to live my life in any way that I what? In any way, shape, or form. Whatever it may be, just put that 100% opposite, but please write it down before you get up this evening. All right? Okay. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate it. What, Nancy?
I think I missed something.
What did you miss?
Probably the fact that I wasn't in here.
Oh, the beginning.
Oh, yeah, she missed the
I was
beginning.
like, what did you miss?
She didn't write anything down.
No.
You didn't write anything down,
Yeah.
Nancy. I can't help you with that.
We all wrote
That's
something.